Give a shout out to our sponsors, R30 Agency, a private investigation firm. And if you are in need of some weapons training classes or advanced weapons classes, please reach out. Those are ongoing from R30 Agency. I'm hearing really great things from friends of mine who have taken the classes. And we also have Salvo, a campaign victory simplified, and we will definitely hear more from Salvo later on. If you wouldn't mind, if you are watching, please like and share this episode with all your friends. If you are an REC member, please share it with all of your Republicans in your precinct. If you could help us get this episode out there, we'd really appreciate it. Drop a comment if you would like to chat with us. You can donate through our website, as well as we are seeking sponsors. If you are a candidate or a business owner who would like to get some exposure, you can let us know. And also you can sponsor us through Rumble Rants or Super Chats, which we will also make sure get read. And I think that's all the housekeeping, right, Jessica?
I think so. I think we're good. How's everybody doing?
Woohoo.
Woo-hoo.
It's been an interesting week.
It has been.
Yeah.
It has been.
What's up?
Very interesting. I kind of want to let everybody know that if you have not already subscribed and part of the local, the Coastal Star,
Yes.
this newspaper is by far like the greatest local paper ever.
I think so.
I was reading a couple articles. They are right on the money. They know what's going on. They have their fingers on the pulse. So they are not our sponsor. I want to be very clear.
Yes.
But if they want to, we're open to that
Yes.
conversation.
That's true. Very true.
So I highly recommend checking out the Coastal Star. They have their paper online, but you can actually get a physical paper.
And I think some of the articles in the paper are different than, not written differently, but I think there's different articles in the paper versus online. Because I've seen stuff posted online that doesn't always come out in the paper. I don't know if everything that's in the paper is online. So definitely look at both. And yeah, it's so fun to get that paper. I love reading it.
Yeah. So it was very interesting because they had a couple really great articles that I think everybody should be paying attention to. And if you're not paying attention to news, media, things of that nature, it's a great way to just kind of get your finger on the pulse and knowing what's going on locally. So definitely want to give a shout out to them as far as just and they're just so well written. Like there's just
Mary Hill Dackey, I think her name is. She's interviewed with me a couple
Yeah,
times.
so
for
it's
a few
just-
different things. She's a great reporter.
It's just very it's not biased, it's just information. So it's great. Also want to let everybody know that our state legislation session is coming up January 9th through March 8th. That's when Tallahassee kind of gets their ball rolling. So things to keep an eye on. Also, we have Palm Beach County Days coming up January 9th and 10th, where we as a county get represented in Tallahassee, which is really cool. Maybe we'll talk to the commissioner about that for a couple minutes today. And we got the pleasure of hearing from Joseph Abruzio, the county clerk and comptroller, yesterday, and at a local meeting, and he gave a lot of great information. So I want to kind of point out a couple things that he's been doing and giving you guys some information and some local news. Joseph Abruzio, our county clerk and comptroller, he invested $200 million in Israeli bonds. And then by his divesting and investing as the time as comptroller, he has increased our payments from 27 million to 180 million. So that is great news for Palm Beach County. And then there are some awesome self-service and just basic things on the website that a lot of people may not know about. So check out mypalmbeachclerk.com. Great information on there. They also offer a free property fraud alert, kind of like a title lock. I don't know if any of you have seen those commercials or anything about that, but it kind of gives you it alerts you if somebody tries to do something with your title or your property. So the county clerk and comptroller actually provides that service free of charge. You just got to sign up for it. The difference is that it doesn't help you if something does happen. It just alerts you that there's an issue or a problem. So just kind of keep that in mind. They also offer a self-service navigator for some legal issues.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So
It's not legal advice. Like, they're very clear. It's not legal advice. It's just a process to help you know, like, okay, if you have to go do something in court, what are the documents that you might need? like what do you need to do to kind of figure out how to navigate it. And I think that was super cool that they do that.
Yeah, and they're happy to answer questions. And I was very impressed with how much information he was willing to give. And he has a whole, what do you call it? A checks and balances guide. I guess this guide is like award winning. I just got this information, so I'm going to be checking out a little bit more of that. So once we have more information, I'll let you know. But those are the updates that I have so far. Abby, or not Abby, I'm sorry.
Unless, Abby, if you have any updates, you could drop them in the chat, and that way we know your updates.
I'm so used to handing it over to Abby.
I know, right?
Josie, do you have any?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's been kind of a not slow week. It's been crazy, but like, there's just not a ton that I was gonna, I mean, we could talk about last week, but I figure we could talk about that with commissioners. We jump in. I'm sure all of our listeners know that the GL home swap definitely denied officially. So we'll get into that as we chat with the commissioner. So that's kind of the big thing. I still feel like it's taken me like all week to recover from that. And then I personally was out of town this weekend. I got to go with one of my kids to a conference up in Melbourne, which is beautiful. And it's just so different. It's so different being in, like, we're only 2 hours away and it's still on the coast. So
that's where my daughter lives.
So yeah. And I mean, there's so much open space. So I really want to know why people aren't moving there, because there's so much it seems ripe for development. I'm like, why is everyone coming to Palm Beach County? I mean, I love Palm Beach County, but like, if you're just coming to Florida and you really want to do something, there's like so much there that is ripe for that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's very interesting traveling around different parts of Florida with that lens of now like being on the government side, on the county side, and understanding a lot more of the structure of how that works. And then I have all these questions. I'm like, I have a question about this, and I have a question about, I don't know who to ask, because most people don't know. They just look at you like you're insane. They're like, well, I don't know, because I wouldn't have known if someone would have asked me these questions, a year ago. But just stuff about about their county. So it was fun. It's always good to get out of town and then come back home and go, back home. So yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and dig in with
Commissioner Woodward.
Yeah.
So we're gonna put on our interviewing hat a little bit, because we know a lot of the answers to some of the questions we're gonna ask, but we really want the viewers to hear from you. And so tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you.
Okay.
How'd you get here?
How'd I get here? Marci Woodward. I live in Boca. Moved here with my husband almost 20 years ago. High school sweethearts. We have dogs. We were not blessed with children. And we were here, love Palm Beach County, living our happy life. Sorry, this is new for me. Living our happy life through 2019. I hadn't met any of you. And as we know, what happened in 2020 brought us all to very different places.
That's the only good thing about COVID, I think, is it brought all of us together.
Look, here we all are.
So I can't not be thankful for it at the same time as hating it.
Yeah, it's very true.
Silver
very
linings,
true.
yes.
Yeah.
But for me, it was eye-opening on a number of levels, and I thought of myself as very politically savvy before. But, really, I only paid attention to Washington, D.C. and somewhat Tallahassee, the big stuff that I thought was the most important. And then COVID exposed for me this world of politics right here in Palm Beach County, in our cities, and all of it. And the first letter that I ever wrote to a politician was to Mayor Scott Singer, who I now know very well, but, wanting to know when are you going to reopen the beaches, because I was kind of losing my mind over all of this and had so many questions. And, the world was in flux. And I was told to contact my county commissioner. And honestly, I was like, what is a county commissioner? I don't even know. Is this a real thing? And, turns out, yeah, there's 7 of them. And thus began my journey into local politics. And joined the REC. This was after forming the group with Abby, who's not here with us tonight.
Abby!
Yes. Locals for Liberty. We
joined the REC at the same time.
We did. We actually joined at the same time. And that was how we met. But I think Christine Mancini invited you to our group, and then you showed up, and I'm like, oh, I know you guys. We just joined together. So,
Exactly.
Yeah. But Abby, there was John Taylor. I'm sure Abby told the story, but he was kind of the one that we all met through Twitter during the crazy year, and sent me a text, a private message at Thanksgiving. I was up in South Carolina visiting our families, and do you want to meet in real life? And of course, I'm like, I mean, if you remember, put yourself back into 2020 where nobody was meeting anybody and everybody was covered in masks and lockdowns and all of this. And I was like, yes. And then he immediately responded, nothing crazy. We're not planning anything. Just, like regular people, which I think he realized what that sounded like when he sent the message out. And
we're not forming a militia.
We're not forming a militia. And
hear that, FBI? No
yeah,
militias.
No militia.
No militias.
But I asked Michael, I was like, what do you think? And Michael's my husband. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And we met at the Barrel of Monks, and it was 8 of us all together and meeting for the first time, like sitting in the corner. We didn't have our mask on. We're drinking beers and just had a conversation about what has happened in the past year. That was the first week of December. And it was wonderful. And we kind of got up to leave, and we didn't really want to leave, but they're kicking us out because it's closing time. And we're like, we should do this again next month. And then we did. And then it was like this instant forming of, we have to find our people. And it was one of those where, sometimes in your life, you're part of a group, you're part of a community, your family, whatever it is. And that year, I think, wrecked a lot of close relationships that people had. People ended up taking sides, or people were scared, whatever happened. You kind of lost your sense of community. And we started finding it. We found it that night, this magical moment, and was like, we have to, there's more of us. We know there's more of us. And we ended up printing these little cards. And it's like, when you find someone and you know who your person is, like, that's your people, just give them the card. We're meeting at the Barrel of Monks. It was like this secret society, and we thought we were so cool.
Fun.
Yeah. And they had buy one, get one free beers. That was a good lure, too. And, it's like, yeah, we're just normal people. You want to come hang out and talk, like, normal stuff. And it grew so quickly.
I want to say mine and Stu's first meeting, like, there was like 20, 25 people there.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
And, and it's like we tapped into this weird moment of people searching for other people like them that had nothing to do really with a party. It wasn't a political movement. It wasn't a religious movement. It wasn't any of this. It was just people who, like, I need to be in a world that makes sense again. And I'm asking questions that you weren't allowed to ask, or just like, don't be that person and don't be a grandma killer or whatever. And it's like, I need some of this to make sense. And we found each other. And then we started realizing, okay, we found each other, but how do we get to those who are actually making these decisions for us? And that's how the political part came into play, because obviously, who are we? We're a group of people meeting on the second floor of a brewery in Boca. How are we going to get anything done? And that's where we're like, all right, we've talked, we've yelled at the sky for a few months. Now it's time to figure out what can we do to actually start making a difference for ourselves and for other people just like us.
It's so true. I remember walking in. I told this in our very first couple of episodes. We kind of told how we got here stories, and locals was a huge part of that, because like, I was running for city council. I knew nobody, no people. It was me and Jamie. Shout out Jamie, who I saw today. And I got this email from this dude asking me all these like really weird, intense questions. And I was like, okay, all right, how do I answer these? Because everyone thought I was like this radical anti-masker. I mean, woo! And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna. So he's like, okay, you sound kind of more libertarian leaning. Would you like to come to this meeting in a room above a brewery? And I was like, Nick, my husband, I was like, they want me to come. He's like, is that like the Tongue Tavern? Like, where are we going? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, should I go? He's like, yeah, you should go. I'm like, okay, let's go. So we went, and I remember being like, okay, I have to be like, it's nonpartisan race. I don't know who the people are that I'm walking into. I don't know what's happening. And then like I give my little campaign thing. There was maybe like 15 people. It was really small. It was like the third meeting, because it was February.
It was February.
So it was like this third time you guys had met. I thought this was like this really established group too. I had no idea that they were like I had no idea the backstory of any of this. I'm just like walking into this brewery, and so they're talking, and I remember someone asked me, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Craig. I can't remember. He was like, so what's your opinion on all this mask stuff? And I was like, oh, should I share my real opinion? Like, where do I go with this? Because I'd been like trying to be like, because that wasn't the issue that I was running on. I was running on just issues in Boca, and I was like, okay, well, I kind of tap danced her out a little bit. And then I was like, I'm just going to go for it. And I just told everybody exactly who I was and the lawsuit and the whole thing. And everyone like relaxed in the room. It was this like weird moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I found my people. I left, and I told Jamie, I was like, I'm going back. And I missed the meeting the next month because it was election day. And then that here we are. Like, so like, it's true. It was this like, it is. I still think it is. Thing. So anyway, I just was like, you're bringing all those memories back talking about it. So anyway, so you decided time to do something.
Yes. So that was when I did join the REC, which the precinct strategy. I don't know. We're putting out every option that we had. It's like, all right, we're going to do this. You guys go do that, and we're spreading out. And that started exposing me to candidates. And I volunteered on. I think the first campaign that I volunteered on was Jason Mariner. There was a special election. Alcee Hastings had passed away, and they had a special election, and it was very much a long shot. And for me, it was just one of those moments where I'm like, I've never done anything like this before. It's a good opportunity to kind of rip the Band-Aid off. And what is all of this? How do you knock on doors? Who do you talk to? How does all of this work? And
what did you use to knock on doors?
What do you mean?
What app?
Oh, well, we didn't have Salvo yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. I did use Salvo for my own campaign, though.
Oh, okay.
So, no,
we guys had used it during Mariners.
He started with it, but it wasn't. He didn't have the app yet. It was
okay.
very,
It
very
wasn't
early.
quite developed yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Jumped the gun a little.
No,
Sorry, Ro.
a little bit. But no, Ro was very much in the mix with all of this. But and that district went from the top of Palm Beach County west and went all the way down to Miramar as a crazy big, weird,
gerrymandered wackadoodle district.
And so I went with Abby down to Miramar. We're knocking doors, and we actually used locals to form a kind of like a rally the volunteers at the Griddle. Hosted that, had a great turnout, and because there was people were still kind of reeling from what had just happened, and people that wanted to get involved. So we had a great turnout for that. And nothing against Jason Mariner, because I think that was his first time running too. He was very much, but I used the opportunity to see some things that I liked, and then some other ones were like, if I were a candidate, I would have done this. Did not plan on ever being a candidate, but just, you think about this. If it were me, I would probably do this, or I wouldn't do that.
I saw her as a candidate because I got to door knock with her, and I got to see how awesome that you were. And I was like, I think I remember telling Stu, like, oh, man, she's really, really great.
Well, you saw it, but I was just doing it. And that's pretty much how everything has been. It's just, okay, now this next thing happened. And I think the next campaign I really helped on was Abby's, which my dad had a stroke like right in the middle of all of her stuff. Right. And I had to go out of town. I was away for a chunk, and I missed so much of her campaign, and I really wasn't able to do as much as I would have liked to have. Maybe next time around I can squeeze some time out for her when it happens again. But again, it was another learning experience. And Abby was a much better candidate for me to door knock for, just because I knew her. I knew she knew the issues. She lived in Lighthouse Point, and it was talking to people. That was a difficult one. I think there were 3 people in her race, and it was kind of crazy. But all the people that we interacted with, I noticed how much it made a difference when I told them, like, oh, my friend Abby is running. And when I was door knocking with her, or, we would split up and go, like, I'll take this side of the street, you take this one. I'm like, yeah, Abby's right over there. And they're like, oh, really? And if they wanted to engage, she was there. And I'm saying, it matters if the candidate is participating. And it matters if whoever's knocking on doors, if you have a volunteer, that they know you. I mean, you don't have to be friends, but get to know your volunteers. Yeah. So Jessica and a few other people had hinted, oh, you should do this, you should run. And, we knew that the seat that I now sit in was running unopposed. And, however you feel about that, I initially joined at the very last minute because, the discussion was no one should get to run unopposed. Right. Who was a part of kind of what wrecked our world in the first place. And that's over. I'm done with that. But that was part of the decision. You don't get to run unopposed. If you got to earn it, the voters deserve a choice. And that was kind of where we came in. And I sat around my dining room table with all of you, and Abby, my husband, were there. I was sober. I don't know if anybody else was. But Abby was. Abby was, yes.
Abby was. I don't know about the rest
I
of
was
us.
thankful for the drinks, but it was good.
But I talked to you guys about it, and what do you think? And I had crunched all my numbers. I knew how many voters they were. I knew that this district was trending in the direction, and overall Palm Beach County and Florida was trending in this direction, and I had a chance. And I was like, if we take it to the voters, I've done this a few times with campaigns, and I was like, I think we have a chance. And Salvo, I'll give you a shout out now, he had already been working towards really helping us understand the data, not just how many, registered voters you have, but how many super voters you have, how many independents, are they soft, all of this. He's really able to break it down. And I knew that my district, very few gated communities. We did have some condos and stuff, but we could get to a lot of the people. We could actually knock doors and hit neighborhoods. And you guys were totally like, yes, we're in. And
Do it.
Where do I sign up?
Yep.
Next to the
Let's
last
go.
day, it was official. I filed and I didn't know that I was supposed to really go to the party to ask for permission or support or whatever. I'm
You're
like,
not supposed to do that.
You're not supposed. I didn't.
You don't need to do that.
That's correct.
No.
Yeah.
And I joke sometimes that we Forrest Gumped our way through the campaign because
We Googled our way through.
Yeah,
How do you do this?
we're like,
look it up.
and as we went, we just did it. And my website, I wrote all of it myself, and I would apologize because I'm not a professional writer, but it came from me. And we had volunteers show up for us and people that I would get to know. And I made sure every time we had volunteers show up at the griddle on Saturday mornings, I was there to talk to them because we'd have new people. It's like, ask me any questions you want. And I really tried to get all of the Republican candidates who were running where we overlapped with each other. We had, state Senate races, state House races, all of that. As we're overlapping, let's work together, and like as a group.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Let's work together.
And,
maybe we'll accomplish more.
The thought.
And we kept running into Peggy Gossett Simons. Like we were almost on top of each other all the time and running into neighborhoods and like we're all doing the same thing. It's like let's run as a ticket.
Work smarter.
And as we got more into it, we went to the party and asking, can we get like a group of all the candidates that are together and put our pictures on there so that as we're going out, like, door knock for me, but also let them know, if they're strong, like, oh, she's a Republican, good to know, whatever. Well, here's all your other candidates too. And that was because it's not enough just to get one elected. Like we need backup. We need each other to balance the field. And I think that's something we were able to accomplish, at least in South County. And it's a big deal moving forward, and hopefully that can remain.
I think it really connected us as a group and a community so well, because it was like, here we are, a group of people working towards the same goals. And it was very clear what we didn't want, and we didn't want the people that were currently in office. So it made it very easy to rally around. And I think once voters got to meet you and talk with you and just get an opportunity to love you as much as we loved you was such it was amazing to watch people just literally fall in love with you. Like you would talk to them and they would be like just mush in your hand because you resonated with them so well. And I think I've said this 1,000 times. You are like this magical unicorn that came into our universe with it, like checked all of these boxes. And I don't mean that as, like, yes, you are special. But a lot of special. I mean, you're special to me because you're my friend and I love you. But like you're just a special person because you want to connect with people. You have this ability to be able to have empathy and understanding and just listen. Like somebody could be talking to you about the craziest nonsense stuff, and you really are listening to them. And like, I'm
That's
not sure.
Very rare.
Yeah,
like people,
I'm not sure I can.
People who run for office.
Yeah, like I'm not sure how I can help you with this particular issue, but I'm at least going to listen to you and offer you the ability to communicate, to feel heard. And I think that that's really rare in politics these days. And with that connection, and so many people that we would engage with would be like, well, I've never voted for a Republican, but I'm going to vote for you. I don't know how many Democrats would be like, well, I'm a Democrat, but I'm voting for her because she's freaking amazing. Or I would knock on doors and be like, just check her out. Once you check her out, you'll love her. And they're like, you just want me to check her out? I'm like, yep, just check her out. I'm like, if you just read her website, find out I'm like, call her if you have any questions. And I think you just made yourself so available that people, and so open that it wasn't a hard campaign, so to speak. Not that it wasn't long and strenuous and things of that nature. And hot.
It was hot.
But it really, and I think it just really, I think that's what we were missing. Like, I think that's just what we're missing in a society is being able to connect with our representatives. And through this process and knowing you was like the first opportunity that I had to be able to say, like, you mean I should have like my representatives' phone numbers where I can actually call them and ask them questions?
What?
Like, what?
They should be approachable people that we can go talk to and say, hey, I have an issue. Can you help me with this? Or I want to know more about you because you are my voice in the government. And it's huge. Yeah.
And it's especially true at this level, at the local level. And that's why, if I were going to put myself through this, I said it was Palm Beach County, or, I don't want to go to Tallahassee. I know
So
I'm
you're
not
not going
supposed
to
to
run
say
for
that.
governor?
I don't want to go up there, DC, whatever, and not just because I can make more of a difference here, but it's most of the partisan stuff that really divides people.
Mm-hmm.
It happens at other places. I mean, what happens here in our communities, like most of that stuff, it's our neighborhoods, it's our communities, and we live here.
Right.
Your local representatives live in the communities that they represent, and which means whatever I'm voting on, it's going to affect me just as much as you or my neighbors or whoever. And when you have people who represent us, but they live in DC for most of the year, and they come back and visit, maybe they have an office, but it's no fault on the individual, but the position itself is not really suited for proper representation, whereas this is. And, and even with Tallahassee, it's better because they only go to session for, a few months, and then they have committee meetings and stuff. But for the most part, they're here.
Yeah.
They're and they go to events that are local, and you can get to them. For the most part, you really can.
You should be able to.
You should be able to. I mean, as it's set up, if it's done appropriately,
If they're doing it correctly.
you can.
Yeah.
And stuff in DC, which is really what it takes all the headlines and all of the news media. They focus on what's happening
All
in
the
Congress and
drama.
Senate, and that's the drama. And it's where a lot of stuff doesn't get done. But
Talking
it's
drama, we have 2 Rumble rants, everybody.
Ooh, thank
Woo!
you. You want to give them
Yeah.
a read?
Yeah, so we have a Rumble rant by Abby Q17.
Abby.
And also Mo Woody 76 gave us a Rumble rant.
Thank you. Any
Uh,
comments with them?
And so Mo Woody said, "Good evening, fine folks. So proud to work with all of the lovely ladies to save PBC." And Abby was for the shout out for John Taylor. So thank you for that.
Aw.
Yes. And we have a couple comments as well. We have local AF. Rogan's got nothing on you ladies tonight. You're hot.
Thank you.
So awesome. Please be sure to Rumble rant or give us payment in YouTube as well, and a super chat. We'd appreciate it. We'll be sure to read them out loud. So sorry for that interruption, Commissioner. Had to do some business.
So going back, I want to go back to the campaign just so we can kind of, all right. So you win. What was your margin that you won by?
Do you
remember?
4%? I think it was 4%.
Yep.
And what was the moment like when you were like, okay, this is it. I won.
Well, the final 3 weeks or so before the campaign, it started becoming like, oh, this could actually happen.
Oh, I
know you
remember
were
that.
there. You
Oh,
were-
yeah. You would come,
and-
you were like, first of all, I think I can do this job.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to win this. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing it. I don't know. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, we had a moment. I had a moment where it was a few weeks, three before early voting started. It was like, oh, because it's just the conversations we were having, and it felt like the energy that was there. It was like, and I during the campaign earlier, and you recall, like I've had several meetings that I went to, and I was like, oh God, and I realized I was seeing the same people, and my opponent, like he was the favored one. Everybody knew him, and
From
he
both
was very
sides,
established.
both parties
Yes.
knew him.
But then
Largest signs on the block.
yes,
Mhm.
and
The
we-
most signs.
we
on
did
the
not
block.
have a lot of money. We didn't raise a
How
ton.
much money?
We raised 48. I spent a little over 35,000,
Jeez Louise.
which was a fraction of what my opponent
Yep.
spent. And we had no large signs. We only had yard signs. I had my pink flamingo because, I was like, nobody knows who I am. I love flamingos. I'm running for Palm Beach County. Not that I'm not patriotic. I love my country, but it's like Palm Beach County,
Yes. That was
Pink
one of the, I
flamingos.
think that was one of the best decisions. I remember when you told me that too.
Absolutely.
I was like, so no red, white, and blue? And you were like, nope. And I was like,
Pink.
I
We're
had to
going
like,
pink.
I had to like do this like, okay,
Yeah.
sure, let's do it.
And there was some pushback on even, don't be so feminine, don't be so, whatever. I needed pantsuits, and I'm like, I know, I'm a girly girl. I'm going to wear my dresses. I'm going to wear my heels. I like my pink flamingos.
But we didn't go door knocking in heels.
We did not go door knocking in heels. We did have pink flamingo T-shirts,
Yes.
but yeah. But we went out, and I realized as we're going out into the community and talking to people, and they would even say, well, what's a commissioner do? And I'm like, okay, you're me,
Yeah.
like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I would talk to them and explain some of this, and what does a commissioner do? What is the job? And they're like, well, is there anybody running against you? And I would tell them yes, and they didn't know who he was. And I'm like, that's when it hit me. Like regular people who are working and living their lives and raising their children, it's like they're out there doing this. And yes, he had a very strong following of people who were tied in, but there's 100,000 voters voted in this race. And I'm like, there's an awful lot of people out there that actually aren't tied in and don't know. And they're regular people just like I am. And I'm running to try to represent them. And as we went into neighborhoods, that's when we're having these conversations and people were responding. And it was very positive. And I'm like, oh my God, this can actually happen. And that's, that was about a month to 3 weeks before. And so gears were shifting. I mean, I still wasn't positive, but I'm saying it's going to be close. It's going to be really close. And then, we were at all the early voting places and getting wonderful feedback from people.
That was so much fun,
and I'm just like, whoa, like this is
Party at the
polls.
And people would even come in and they would see, it's like, oh, the pink flamingo, I see that sign in my neighborhood.
I see that sign everywhere.
And it's like, we went to neighborhoods, and as people were driving by, instead of seeing a large sign on the corner of the road, they're like, oh, my neighbor down the street. And then they would look at it, and that meant something to them. And that part of that strategy, I think, was a big deal. Because, I was going to the people. It was a lot of work. You helped me a lot. We had a lot of volunteers because I couldn't pay people. And thankfully, they did it for me. And it meant something, I think, to have a nobody, a private citizen do this and to try to take on the job. And I think that was a big turning point. And then the night of, we knew, and it was getting close. We went to the beer garden, had a little after upstairs, and when the first one went through, and I think he was up by 4% for the vote by mail, and the fact that I was that close with vote by mail was like. And then I knew the in-person was big, and as the early voting came in, and then the day of voting, I think I lost the vote by mail by 10,000, and I made up the additional 4 by in-person. And we had a horrible storm. If you remember, there was was it Ian or Nicole? A storm had come through.
Both.
But the day of, they actually stopped some of the polling places on the coast and Highland Beach and some other areas. Terrible rainstorm came. And that's where I was like, oh my gosh, the rain, they just stopped voting. And it did. It rained hard. But still, and Ro was actually the first one to call me because he was there.
Ro had been texting me again. Shout out to Salvo. He had been texting me for a few days before, and he was like, "Don't tell Marci this. I just need her to stay focused. She should stay focused, stay focused, stay focused. I don't want her to get distracted." But he's like, the data is showing. The data is showing. And I'm like, okay, I won't say anything. Sorry, Ro, if I'm saying it. I'm saying it now. I'm gonna say it now.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I was still I'm not even gonna think about it. I would check it. I'd be like, cool. And then I was like, okay. Staying focused. And
well, we weren't going to lose focus. I mean, we're in it all the way to the end. And we were at all the places, and I had friends again that helped all of the polling places. We were up at 3 a.m. that morning. I mean, going to every polling place because I'm up in Boynton. Actually, South Palm Beach is as far north as I go.
We were up there putting signs.
We
had
places
Bill Riley, that I've never been.
We had caravans going.
We
did putting signs out. And
shout out Bill Riley,
Elizabeth Warren,
Pocahontas. We had a little. Yeah, we did. We had a caravan, and we jump out, and we couldn't tell how far away because you have to put the signs 150 feet away from the polling location.
And a couple places we got shooed off from.
Yeah, and it was so early that they hadn't put the marker out for where we could put the sign, and so we were foot stepping.
Yeah. And it was so windy that Stu and I went around to several precincts to put the signs back up. Just to make sure that they didn't fall over.
Oh my gosh.
But we did have organization with other candidates. We're like, can you take these 7 precincts? And we'll take some of your signs, you take some of ours, and we
from the grassroots campaign side, definitely it was the people from both campaigns, all the campaigns.
Joe Budd,
together.
Bill Reicherter, Peggy Gossett, all of us ended up dividing a lot of the places, and that was how we were able to get to all of them.
Yeah.
And it was
that was Region 5, as far as we were so dedicated and so connected as a community that it was amazing. It's it could be a TV movie one day.
The rise of the commissioner.
Yeah. But something that I didn't realize until about 3 weeks before the election, because for whatever reason, I was thinking I wouldn't get sworn in until January. And then I think it was early in October, I started looking at some of this and realized I would be sworn in 2 weeks after the election. And I was just like, that's fast, So I had to be ready. And so the month before, I kind of, we're still campaigning, but I was also having to pivot and really pay attention to this could happen, and I need to be ready to go. And I still I mean, the 2 weeks from election, everybody joked with me. I was so tired. Remember?
I remember. We're like,
And-
we can rest on
Yeah.
November 9th.
Rest
We
on
can
November 9th.
November 9th.
That's if you,
You still
lose.
haven't been able to rest yet.
But you know what? I mean, it kicked into a whole new gear at that point, and I had to be brought up to speed on a lot of issues. And I kept all of the staff that was there. They were good. Bob was very gracious and, handing stuff over and helping me to get ready to take over the position because, I mean, the day I was sworn in, we were voting on budget priorities that afternoon and then Thanksgiving. And that Monday was a complicated zoning and comp plan meeting that was my previously longest until GL. It went almost 10 hours. And that was, I'm talking
so many terms and verbiage that
Yes.
you don't know.
And I
you're
was
like,
having to meet with applicants and lobbyists because, none of them thought they were going to have a new person coming in. And then it's like, whoa, who is she? What? And then I had to be brought in and do so much reading and pouring into this because it was comp plan and zoning issues days after I'm sworn in. And, it really hasn't stopped since. But I absorb it a lot better now. And I've learned the alphabet soup, about half of it, because,
oh my gosh, there's so much. I'm still always like, I like in the margins of of things. I'm like, okay, what is that? What does that one mean? What does that one mean? I need like a Bible of like terms.
there should be.
There should be. We should.
Well,
we should
Michael
write
gave,
a Bible of
Michael
terms.
gave me like a printout of like
Okay, I need a
My
copy of
friend,
that.
actually, my friend Jeff Bolton, if he ever
Oh,
hears
okay.
this, he had sent
Shout
me
out.
a list of the acronyms and
The
all-
acronyms, that's the word.
What are the 3-letter, the TLA is 3-letter, whatever. I don't know, whatever it is.
Acronyms?
Maybe. But
TLA,
it's
3-letter acronym.
that's the speak that they
Yeah.
do. And now that I'm in it, like it does help to use those letters because you're saying the same long stuff over and
otherwise
over
like
again.
things would take twice as long as they do.
And they already
They-
take.
and they already
Goodness
take too
gracious.
long, right?
Yeah.
So,
So, Abby wanted to let you know, Commissioner, I have been so impressed with your first year in office, Commish. You set the bar high for a first-time politician.
Aw, Thank you, Abby.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now what has been the thing that has surprised you the most, and what has been like, yeah, I expected this?
Surprised me the most. Let's see. Honestly, because where we came from, how much I get along with the staff, the established staff. I mean, from Virginia Baker, she's our county administrator, on down. Coming from the outside, we couldn't get answers from anything.
Nope.
We're citizens, and you go to them. And now, as a commissioner, like I get all the answers. I ask questions and I get answers. And I've also realized that part of it is, they do answer to the commissioners. They don't actually answer to the citizens. The commissioners answer to the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me to kind of be mad at them for not having access for a lot of this, well, they're not really meant to answer to us. That's who our electeds are meant to answer to.
Right.
So,
It's an important. Can you repeat that one more time? That's really important for people to understand.
it is important. Your elected officials, we are the ones who answer to the citizens. You put us in office. You come to us and ask questions, and most likely we are not going to have them right off the top of our head, but we have access to those that do. You don't. We're like the conduit, really.
Right.
So when you have questions, and if you go to our staff or whatever, I'm not saying they won't answer you, but we have 1.5 million people
They're
in
not
this county.
obligated. There's nothing to push them or to. There's nothing there for them to be like, oh, let me answer this email right now.
Right.
type of
But
thing.
if that email is passed to them from a commissioner, because you contact one of us, and there's 7 of us, and then we're funneling that information into them, this constituent has this concern, or there's a road issue, or any number of issues that come to us, we pass that along to them, and they are very responsive to us. So really, our job is the one to get answers for our constituents. And
So if a constituent is not getting an answer, who's at fault?
your representative.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
Get
they
that.
will. They
Right.
will answer us. I have not had, I don't always like the answer, but they give me an explanation if we can or can't do something, why something, if it's a budget issue, there's any number of, especially when it comes to roads and everybody wants a traffic light, or, there's different things that come up, but they will give me the reason. They'll explain it, give me the statute, whatever it is, and then I'm able to go back and communicate that. Or my staff. I mean, you guys know when we get emails, like you have access to engineering or the different departments, and they will answer you, and we can give that answer to them. And even people appreciate
I
it
will
so
say
much
I
more.
like that part of the job.
Yes,
Because I'm calling from Commissioner Woodward's office. Yes, how can I help you?
yeah. and that's the thing. If you have access to us, you should have access to all of. And even though we are district commissioners, and not that I'm trying to steal any constituents, but if you're not getting leadway with your district commissioner, then, all of us are county commissioners. We represent the whole county because
Right.
we have 7 votes, and what we vote on, it's countywide. So, I mean, you're better to work through your district commissioner, and that's just because it makes it easier.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
we are when it comes to constituent services, it works better that way.
I love how the county too makes that easy for constituents to reach out, because they have the BCC All Commissioners email address and things like that. So it's like our county. One of the things I've been very impressed with is how our county has been set up, and a lot of our elected officials doing such a great job of like helping highlight the county services. So I think that surprised me of all things as well. So I definitely hear what you're saying from local AF is talking about Jody Schwartz. So
Oh,
yes,
shout out,
we
Jody.
need to give a shout out to Jody Schwartz. She definitely
Yes.
was a great leader to wrangle all the monkeys
Oh
together.
my gosh, she did.
She did a great job. So yes, thank you, local AF for putting that out so that we can make sure to give her kudos.
There are so many people. I shouldn't have even started with the names because there are so many people that volunteered. And I say volunteer because I was not able to pay anyone other than, on occasion we did a breakfast, or I had T-shirts to give. I mean, we had no money for this, and people really came out and helped, and it made all the difference.
So I have a question. So I know that's like a big struggle for candidates to get volunteers. What do you think, what inspired the people to want to work for you?
I think some of it is they had worked with me on other campaigns, so they saw that I was willing to do for others what I was now asking and needing from them. So I think that helped a little bit. And, just that I was so raw, I guess. I'm me. I'm not a very good politician because I'm not very polished, and I don't know how to play. Well, I know how to play it. I just refuse to play the game. I don't like it. And I'm very just honest. And I think at the time, people really wanted that. They wanted just a normal person coming into this and being like, you know what? Our founding fathers, they weren't practiced politicians and stuff. This was we were meant to govern ourselves.
Yes.
And they wanted someone that was more like them and willing to put the hard work in, because I was out as much as anybody. And
More. We all did on Saturdays, and then you and I and Shiloh in the stroller.
Yes, Shiloh was our baby.
He was our little man campaign dude.
Our smallest volunteer.
Yes.
He had a little T-shirt.
He did. He did.
And he was such a good sport for the most part. We pushed him a little too far a few times, I think, but
more. And a lot of people, I think that people know that. So I mean,
But I think that had a lot to do with it, and just I don't take people for granted either. I very much appreciate anything that anyone was willing to do for me, because they're taking time away from their lives. And I think I did my best to just appreciate them as much as I could.
So that's your advice to candidates who are running, who are struggling to get volunteers, is to be real.
To be real and to anything that anyone's willing to give you anytime, it matters. And you're going to have to outwork your volunteers. You really are.
That's a good word.
That's a great
That's
one.
a great one.
Nobody, I don't think a lot of people that decide to run for office actually understand that. And I think, this brings, and I always shout them out, because I think like Brian Stenberg and Bill Reicherter learned so much from you, because I see them out there. I see them out there in the community. Brian Stenberg makes I don't know how many phone calls a day. So I just think that you really inspired local people to get off their butt and connect with the community.
And if I ever had someone who's like, well, I've never knocked doors before, I don't know, I'd be like, well, would you go with me? And I'll knock on the door and you can just kind of hang out with me and help me carry some stuff. And, a lot of people would do that with me one day. And they're like, you know what? I can do this myself.
Right.
And
then, it is intimidating.
It is. It is very much. And then to do it with me, they saw how I interacted. They saw the questions and how people responded. And then they were like, I want to do this. I can do this. And then they would take off on their own. And it grew. Because, it didn't start out that way. And every week, and we would have different people. A lot of times we'd have the same that would show up. And then somebody's like, I can't do Saturdays, but I could go out on a Tuesday night with you. I was like, I'll go with you on a Tuesday night. And so anytime I could get, I had to take it. And I had to work harder than anybody.
How many doors do you think you knocked?
I wondered that because Salvo, we were beta testing a lot of Salvo, and we would click to save, and a lot of times it wouldn't save in the app, and we would go back and look, and it was like, I know we already hit this neighborhood, and all these were still showing up. So I don't honestly know. There were thousands.
That's been fixed.
That has been fixed.
Yeah. We were the beta test.
We were the beta
Shout
test.
out to Ro.
Yes.
It was awesome.
And, and there were different people that went out with me and would have the same problems, or we would go into Wi-Fi and try to sock it. But there thousands of them. And we would pick different areas. So we would go into Del Rey, or, we would go in, a lot of Boca, because I have all of the city of Boca, but also Boynton. And, we're driving up and down A1A a couple times and just trying to be, because some areas don't let you put signs up. And then you'd see someone else's sign. And, if it were another Republican, Dan Francisi, I'm like, and I would knock on their door.
You go run and knock on the door.
And I would. And I'm like, I'm the Republican who's running for your local county commission. I'm your district. And I would talk to them. They're like, oh, sure. Oh, I love the pink flamingo. And it was I think a lot of people responded to that too, because they could put it out and their neighbors aren't thinking, there's
not
drama.
Confrontational.
They're like, it was non-confrontational.
It's a pink flamingo. It's so pretty.
Who can get mad at that?
Right.
So
even though they're very fierce characters.
Just don't mess with their nest and their people.
It was very fitting, I do have to say. You are the pink flamingo for sure. You're very protective of what means the world to you, and I think that's awesome, and it represents you in such not only a beautiful way but a fierce way too, and I think that's really awesome.
Okay, so the second part of my question. So staff, and then the second part of my question is what didn't surprise you? You're like, pretty much expected
I had to write
this.
it down because it didn't surprise me how slow stuff works, because you always hear government operates so slow. So it didn't really surprise me that it did, but it kind of why it does, and at first it was why is it so slow? Why does it take so long to do anything? And, as I'm into it, it's like, some of this stuff should be slow, because if we get too quick on certain things, then it's a bad decision. And, it's a large county. But then again, there's certain things that are slow where I'm like, you guys, we're just being slow on purpose. This is just obnoxious, So the slowness of the process. But then again, it depends on where I'm coming into it. Because like I said, I'm voting on stuff that had been some of it years in the making.
Right.
And I'm coming in on the final vote. And it's like, I have to catch up on all of this. But then it's like, okay, now that I see the process for how this comes into play, it's like, okay, there is a process, and there's a reason for a lot of it. And some of it is overly cumbersome, and some of it risk management, because a lot of what's done is so we don't get sued. And I'm like, so when you have to think through all the things, all right, but they could sue us if this happens, and what if this happens, and what if this happens? I'm like, oh my God, we're never going to be able to do anything if we can't get sued.
Right.
Because we live in a litigious society, unfortunately. So there's that part. So the speed of it. But I will say the other part that I didn't expect, and probably the least favorite part of it, is that I have to vote, which, you know that. But then when you get into a situation, I can't abstain from voting. And so if you have to choose this or this, and I'm like, no, I don't like either one of those. Those are two bad options. It doesn't matter. We have to vote.
You can't abstain.
We cannot abstain. The only way you get out of a vote is if you have a conflict. So Sachs she's had to recuse herself a couple of times because she's a lawyer and her husband's law firm represented an applicant or whatever. There's a conflict. And that's the only way that legally you get out of it. They joke that you can go to the bathroom and be absent, but that works once,
What if you're not there for the day for some reason?
If you're not there, then, you're not there. And, it's not, if you're sick, that happens, or, if you've got a scheduled vacation or something like that. But I mean, I had an opportunity to go on a trip with a TPA organization to the Netherlands for this whole biking and the trains and all of this that was coming
up. Oh my gosh,
up.
that sounds amazing.
Amazing, right? Well, it was last week.
Oh.
So I'm like, I can't miss that vote.
Dope.
I mean, this is probably the biggest vote that'll happen in my career.
Of your career.
And it was yeah, you can't miss that because that,
That would not look good on your record.
No. So, had I been deathly ill, I probably would have even had to zoom in for that, because it's just there's certain ones you don't want to miss. But then there's other ones where I'm like, man, I don't want to be here for this.
Trip.
It's just a bad option. But you have to vote. And we do. There's 7 of us, and, you have to.
Oof. What's been, I don't know if you could talk about, what's been the hardest one?
The GO.
Well, I mean, the hardest for a decision. I mean, including GL, I
Well,
guess.
I mean, GL, you kind of did that as part of your election aspect. So
So my
stayed
decision wasn't hard. Getting through the process was very difficult because what I knew about it as a candidate, I didn't like. And, the first meeting that I had with GL, I think, it was January after I was elected. I had my first sit down with them and, they explained all the things and I told them, it's like, I don't like this. And so I was honest with them from the beginning.
Like panicking.
Yeah.
They had Bob.
What do you mean that
Yes.
you don't
They
like
had
this?
Bob and I was like, I don't like this. I can't support this the way it is. And they sent like the next level up and the next level up. And then it even sent the rabbis in to talk to me. And it sent every group that was getting something. The water people came in to talk to me. So it was layers and layers and layers and so much pressure. And it was like, I don't like it because it's breaking our comprehensive plan in a very fundamental way, which is how we got into this problem because the North County property was a break in the comp plan. And, that never should have been. And what's existing right now should not have been, but it was voted on and they have the rights to do it. And I understand the North County trying to scale that back, but it's painful and you're just spreading the pain to another area that, State Road 7's failing with traffic. So there's so much to it. And it's like, really, this is why it should move slow. This is why these are big, big deals. And the comp plan is the one place that the commission has to stop this sort of thing.
Can you explain real quick for those who don't know what exactly is a comprehensive plan? A comprehensive in general.
Yes.
Like what
So
that means.
the comprehensive plan, it's large. It's basically your whole unified land development code. It's what we have as a county. And in this county, we have managed growth tiers. So we have like the urban, suburban tier, East County where your cities are. You have the ex-urban and the rural tier. The ag reserve is its own tier. Each one of these has development orders, requirements, the density, the height. I mean, there's all sorts of things that go into it. And the different areas are marked out for, planning for traffic, planning for population growth, planning, how this can go,
Schools, things like that.
infrastructure,
Yeah.
schools. And, a lot of our unincorporated is not in the urban suburban tier. So we don't actually manage those, even though, but
So comprehensive plans, cities also have them.
cities have their own.
Okay.
And, we monitor them. We keep up with what's happening in the cities, but we can't tell the cities, no, you can't do that, which is also, it's very important for us to realize as we're approving stuff in the future, we can't actually control what the cities are going to do. So if we have unincorporated areas next to municipalities who are having crazy growth, that traffic is going to come into the unincorporated, which is why, I have a problem with how we can change the comp plan and allow for some of these projects to be built. And it takes them 15, 20 years to build them. They don't have to readjust for traffic because they already have their approval. But the city next door has gone crazy with development and the road is blocked. So,
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
so these are some issues that now that GL's passed us, it exposed a lot because the North County has 21 road failures in this area. And Westlake didn't exist 15 years ago and now it's booming. So we have a lot of municipalities that are expanding rapidly, but they're using county roads or they're driving into unincorporated areas or the people live there and work in the city. So either way, the traffic is going back and forth. The comprehensive plan is meant to have smart managed development that we can control. When you make a fundamental change to the comp plan, there's a ripple effect. And this was like throwing a boulder into a little tiny pond. So, it's just anytime you make a big change to the comp plan, there's just unforeseen consequences. And it should be a much bigger decision and a weightier decision, I think. And this board, I'm so proud of us last week because it was over an 11-hour meeting on this one issue.
Whew.
But commissioners really questioned and brought up a number of different issues. Commissioner Mac Bernard and Maria Sachs, which he voted for this
In the transmit.
in May to transmit. So
What
early-
does transmit mean?
Transmit means that that's the first stage of sending it to the state. They send back responses basically, if it's like terrible, then I think years before they would give a lot of comments. Now it's very few comments. It's basically, it's not the worst thing in the world, whatever. You guys are on your own, which means we should do our due diligence and really dig into it, ask hard questions because this was a big one.
Yeah.
And that is what happened last week. So if anybody wants to see what local government
Pop some popcorn.
should, yes. But
Get a soda.
and I've had
and
so
watch
many constituents actually tell me, really it didn't matter which way they felt about it. They were so happy that we did our jobs.
Mhm.
And we really like pushed the hard questions and got answers. And I don't know if you know, on those, like they have to raise their right hand and swear
yeah.
in. And even if you're going to speak to the commission,
Because it was
all the applicants,
quasi-judicial.
which means we can ask questions and like they have to answer us just like you're in front of a judge. So that is the time where if we want to know, and even asking a neighboring community, how much money are you getting paid to support this project? They have to answer us, and we were able to ask all kinds of questions.
That was glorious.
About, water projects and any number of sweeteners that were part of this, like you're here to support this. What are you getting? And they had to tell us. And if you don't ask, you're never going to know.
Right.
And that was our one chance to do it. And because of sunshine laws, we can't talk to each other before a meeting like this. So we have to sit up there all together and have this debate. And it doesn't always happen, but this one, it was like, oh yeah, we're looking down there, we're talking to you, and we're over here talking to you. And we did it. And it's hopefully is the biggest thing I ever have to participate in. Because Mac Bernard, he's 7 years in. He's like, this is the biggest thing I've ever done. Patrick, who's been there over 25 years, that was his longest meeting ever. So I'm kind of hoping that was.
Well, my husband always says eat the frog first thing in the morning. So get it done in your first
Get it
year
done,
of office,
right?
and everything else should be so thrilling.
Yes,
It was super educational for me too, though,
I'm
because
sure.
I got a real
Well,
taste of like this is what it should be.
Yeah, and it also, I think we've talked about this. It gives like a lot of reveals a lot of things too of issues in the county. Okay, these are things that we really need to work on, and so I feel like it's probably kind of given all of the commissioners like a mission of like, okay, I have to fix this in my district or this district, or I want to help. This was brought forward, so I want to make sure that this commissioner gets what they need because this was communicated during this whole thing, and it really did like reveal a lot of stuff that was going on in the county. And I thought that I learned a lot.
Is what I loved about it is it brought back that passion and that energy to have that healthy debate that I think is missing in so many levels of our government.
And I think it's missing in people in general
so
now.
it's like,
everyone is so intense. There's no conversation.
And they can hide behind their screens and their comments and things of that nature. So it's like when you are in front of everybody and you have to say like you're getting $4 million from this developer, or that the developer doesn't want to talk about how much money that they're going to lose if you make them build in North County versus South County. It's like it's and then being there in the room, like you can feel the energy, you can feel the tension. And I mean, I want to say like that will be something that I will never forget for as long as I live. And just to be, just to be in the room and to watch it was amazing, but to also kind of understand the backstory of it and kind of understand and be in the government aspects of it. I will cherish that for a really long time. And I'm going to be a little disappointed if we don't see that a little bit more. But I'm not going to lie.
Not over major issues. Maybe just, less intense issues.
I really, that was the first time, like, I mean, not that Commissioner Bernard isn't vocal and energetic, but it's like, it's the first time I've really seen him get really heated, and not really heated, but just like passionate. Yeah. Like, wait a minute here. You already had this opportunity and now you want to change the rules. So it was just, I just think that
he ate his Wheaties.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the first question he said. I was like, oh, somebody ate his Wheaties this morning. I mean, he was like, he just was very direct and like, and he's very nice. He's very nice, but very firm.
Yeah. And I just enjoyed, I enjoyed how each of you that were against this project were very passionate about the reasons why you were against it. It's like we heard the fours and it was for something. They were getting something out of it basically, or they didn't talk at all. And so to see the three of you very like, this is not good and this is why, and really explaining your vote to the people. I know everybody that spoke to me after it, they respect you. They respected you even more after that because you were so honest and clear, not only with every meeting that you had behind closed doors with the developer and the applicant and all of that kind of stuff and staff. I mean, you were very consistent, but to also bring that to the people, I think, we
all got an education.
Yeah,
like I learned so much through even the whole thing, all the staff presentations, everything. Even sitting in there was stuff that I didn't know. Even though I'd sat through a lot of the meetings, I learned so much by sitting in that meeting.
I had probably, I think I had about 15 pages of notes prepared before. And then we have little notepads, that they give us. And, because as this is happening and we each take turns or someone says something, it's like, oh, hold on. And you write stuff down. And the only one that I actually didn't get to, it haunted me for days. And I did speak to Mac Bernard afterwards, which we can talk about it now because there's no sunshine. And, he didn't sleep for days afterwards. And all of us, because you're just replaying the whole, all of it. And it's very intense when, you're there and you're having to take turns. And one of them was, Commissioner Marino read the referendum that the voters voted on, and there is a lot of confusion. This land was not bought with bond money,
right.
And people are like, "This is our land. You can't, Palm Beach County, you can't give up our land." And GL owned this land, and
owns. They own this land.
They do own this land, but they sold the development rights to themselves, basically for other properties to be able to build, and that is the managed growth tier. The system that's for the ag reserve. And because, and she read all of this, and I had a whole list, and I wanted to know, when the bond was voted on in 1998, but when did we actually get the money? Because it takes a few years. Once it's voted on, there's a time. So we're 2002 or so is when we're really starting to buy this land. And we had competition in the ag reserve. And GL was a big competitor. And because this was bond money, we had restraints on how much we could spend on it. So there's an appraisal. We could only spend 10% more. Well, GL could come in and be like, I'll give you 15% more. I'll give you 20% more. They did not have the same restraints we did. So they were out buying us on a lot of land. So we were only able to get 2,000 acres.
Which is why the board wrote this comprehensive plan change.
So that's how they managed to get the other 8,000 acres was because, all right, if you're going to build here, then you have to put this in preserve. So no, technically we don't own that, but we sort of do because they don't have the development rights. They sold it back to us to be able to build in the other areas. So it's not our land, but we own the preserve part of it. They sold it to us in order to develop the land. And it was like, no, it's a little bit of funny business with it to understand it. But the taxpayers, I believe, and the citizens of this county do have ownership of
the development rights.
Of the development rights because, as a county, we gave you the ability to trade these development rights from this parcel, and then you can build this gated community over here. And they built them. They exist.
Oh, yeah. I have friends who live in them. They're
all of
beautiful big communities.
They're beautiful. And the same thing, they were able to buy development rights off of canals that belong to South Florida Water Management and Lake Worth Drainage District, and even lands in people's backyards.
That's crazy.
So they bought all the development rights that there are to be had. We have agreed to let them build X number of units in exchange for that. So they don't actually own the development rights. We do. As the citizens of Palm Beach County.
It's good. It's good. Yeah.
And that one haunted me. I woke up and I'm like, no. And then I the next morning I'm going through all my papers and I found it, but in the melee, that one got shuffled away. And I was like,
next time you got to tell me, and I'll text you from the audience. You're like, don't forget
it was
to
hard
say
to
this.
keep. I had a stack of papers like this, and just jotting
gosh,
stuff, and
I
like
can
rip that one
imagine.
off, put it over here, and
sticky notes everywhere.
And the whole time I was like, oh, what just happened? What'd they say? Oh my goodness.
And you had to stay focused.
I know.
It was happening
And then I was
quickly.
trying to stay straight face because I was like, oh.
You guys did not do that. No, you didn't.
I said
Audience,
we
they did not.
I said we tried.
We tried. The good news is nobody can really
successful.
see us because we were in the back of the room. So no one really saw us except for the dais and the poor mayor. So I sat down at the beginning of the meeting. We came in, there was no seats. There's no seats. Full. So, because
they
Jessica
actually had 4 overflow rooms.
Yes.
Including outside.
And then outside. So we came in, if we weren't with staff, we wouldn't have been allowed in the room.
Right.
So we got in because we all followed Marci. We all had our binders. And we all looked like little ducks in a row, following her into the...
We were doing our job,
We were doing
Josie.
our job. No, I know. I loved it. It was great. So we go in and we're like, okay, there's nowhere to sit. So we're standing. And that provided us the perfect opportunity to see red tickets sitting on the railing that said complimentary lunch next to one of the GL support T-shirts right behind the GL people. So they were giving away lunches for all of their people who were there wearing their shirts.
Who didn't make it past 5:30?
I would say maybe about 25% of them made it to that point, and those are the ones who actually cared about it. The rest. Were just
by 6 o'clock, all of those blue shirts were gone. There were very few left.
Which I'll give it to them. That's part of their strategy to get this passed was they needed the numbers.
They needed those numbers to make it look like it was super supported by the community. So about an hour or so into the meeting, I was like, I gotta sit down. So I just sat on the floor So then after the lunch break, the mayor and I were walking next to each other, coming back down. He's like, you don't have to sit on the floor. And I was like, I know, there are no seats. He's like, but we have TVs. And I was like, yes, but I want to be in the room. And he was like, okay.
And I said, oh, are you offering your seat, Mayor? And he goes, yes, you can take it.
You can have it. I go for it. Oh my gosh, that was so fun.
And one last little bit on that was, I told him, I was like, you milked your
Did you
response.
say that to him?
Oh, I did.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, you took that as long as, because nobody knew which way he was going to go. And even he had his prepared speech, and I'm still like, are you for or against? I can't tell. And he was going back and forth, and I'm even looking in the audience, and they're like, what's he going to do?
We were,
yeah,
we got it. No, we don't have it. No,
he milked it as long as possible. And
did he say why he did that, or is he just being?
He didn't say. He just kind of is like, he did a grin. I think he enjoyed it because,
it was his moment.
I know.
Yeah.
I was holding Stu's hand, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's gonna vote. He's gonna vote with GL. No, he's gonna vote with. No, he's gonna vote with GL.
She's muttering.
Yeah. And I'm like,
it was real
no.
drama.
That's what I'm saying. If you want to watch the meeting, pop some popcorn. Because there are definitely some spicy moments. One of the GL guys told Commissioner Sachs, he was like, can we just move on? The whole room goes,
He had to go sit in the back of the room. He apologized and was
no,
like,
he
oh.
did. But everyone, the whole board, the whole dais faces, and a whole room. I mean, it was a drama. It was like we were watching courtroom drama. I tell you what.
And you even spoke.
I did.
And she asked me, was I okay with it? And I was like, you're a constituent.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up in West Boca. Like this mattered, and just not on my behalf. You're speaking for yourself.
And I said that. I made that very clear. And
Yes.
I was back and forth all day too, which definitely added to my nervousness of should I or should I not? And should I or not? And it doesn't matter how many times I've spoken at any dais. I always get very nervous when I walk up there. I'm always like, okay, here we go. So I wasn't, up until the last minute, I wasn't really sure I was going to do it. And I rewrote my speech 4 times. And I ended up not really, I said a few things that I'd written, but just there. And so I got called back to the dais by one of the other commissioners to try to, I don't know why, I will not speak to intent, but they questioned me to ask me who I worked for. And in that moment, I was like, I am not shy. I'm not hiding. This is who I work for. I got an extra 30 seconds to give my opinion because they asked me a question that I don't think they knew that I would know anything about. And it turns out I did. By the way, all of my answer I learned sitting in that meeting that day. So I learned that through that. So I was something that I didn't really know about the process was about the roads and stuff and traffic, and specifically in how they compared north versus south and all that kind of stuff. And so I was able to answer by something I had learned. So not even using my county connections at all. It was just sitting in the meeting and understanding what was being said. And then Commissioner Woodward came to my defense too and said, we all have a voice. But
you too, and you cleared it with me, and I made sure, and even the county attorney wanted to make sure, you were okay. I was like, she asked me,
I was
we're
off
good.
clock.
She was
I was
off the clock. Wasn't being paid by me to do this.
Nope.
And but I was like, and I wanted everyone to understand, you felt strongly about this. You asked me. And I was okay with it because you are a constituent. And I was like, everyone who works here, who lives here, you're a tax-paying, voting citizen here, and your opinion matters. And if you care strongly enough that you want to address us, you should be allowed. Any of them should.
She got applause, which you're not allowed to do.
Not allowed, which I'm like,
but she got it.
Kicked out.
She got it. And not only that, but I had lots of county staff come up to me afterwards and like thank you. Not really, they didn't really outright, but it was they were appreciative of that. And then 2 days later, the survey that went out to there was a survey that went out to all the constituents. The survey was sent to all of the staff and said, you're part of the community. Basically, it was not verbatim what you said, but it was and I was talking to Jessica and I was like, that sounds.
I just thought it was.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know if they were planning on sending that out to the staff, but they had sent it out to the constituents a few days before that, and then it went out to staff and said, "We would like your opinion also."
Well, you guys matter too. I mean, you all live in the county. You matter just as much, and you have a different perspective on some of this maybe than our constituents do. But it doesn't mean that you don't have an opinion. And if it's something you feel that strongly about, you want to put yourself up there to address us.
It's not like I do that every time. And like I said, when I was questioned, I said, "This is not my first rodeo. I've been to this dais. I was at this dais before you were." No offense, but
she did text me one last time. Are you still okay with that? And I'm like, I'm so tired. But
I
know what? No, if you want to, yes, you speak. But
Yeah.
It had been a very long day.
Well,
Oh, I
I think
know.
even,
I'm glad you did, though.
even
Thank you. Me too. In the end, I'm
even
glad
for
I did.
me, if it was so important because I knew what this meant to push it out to the community and really make sure that the people that I interacted with knew what was going on and letting them know that they had a voice and that they could have a say. And I thought it was really interesting because we had sent out Cobra had done a petition, and over 8,000 signatures on that petition. And that was from local people in Palm Beach County. And I'm just so proud of Palm Beach County for that. And, I was lucky enough that I got to understand what, I got to read the emails that came into the county commission,
Which you can do if you want to put a public records request in.
Yeah.
All emails are public record.
That's true.
So if you would like to
And
read emails,
they were both sides.
They were both sides. And when we were curious about the final count and how many people were really getting involved. And it was very interesting. Of the ones that were for GL were very cut and paste and they seemed like that they were getting something out of the deal. And things like, like a racetrack was mentioned and things like that just didn't we didn't understand to a point. So, but the ones that were against, such heartfelt emails that
pages. Some of them were pages
long.
long.
And they were personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could just tell that they were so, committed and they love their county and they love the ag reserve and what that meant and our way and our quality of life. And so I want to personally thank anybody who wrote an email or that signed that petition, because I know it gave me motivation to sit through that meeting for all of that time. So I have an amazing boss, Commissioner Woodward, he's like, you can go home, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
And miss this? What are you talking about? We got to be here to text you.
I'm like, you got elected. I told you were not doing this alone. I was there for that first meeting from the very moment that you got sworn in to the moment you left, on that very first moment that you were in. And I was not leaving for this one either because I promised and just because for my own entertainment, I wanted to.
I'm telling you, popcorn.
It was great. It was absolutely amazing. So we do need to take a moment and hear from our sponsor.
Okay, so the renowned political scientist Larry Sabato once said, every election is determined by the people who show up. Well, in today's world, we want to take that a step further and say it's more like every election is determined by the people who get out the vote and those who chase the most ballots to win elections. Anyone who's participated in a political campaign organization like we all have knows that they're inherently oftentimes very disorganized. Even though they're an organization, they're not super organized. They can be fragmented and reactive. And then there's also the consultants who come in and tell you how you should do everything. They're kind of a cross between used car salesmen and they're people who care more about their funding for their corner office than the candidate who's trying to win the office.
Because they get paid whether they win or lose.
Exactly, no matter what. And they don't really care about the candidates. I've really seen that a lot too in a lot of the consultants. I mean, some do. I can't speak to all of them, but I feel like it's very cut and paste. This is what we're doing. This is how we win campaigns. And it's not where we want to see people. It's not that grassroots feeling. So this is where Salvo Journeys comes in. Salvo is a voter outreach platform that gives your political campaign, party, or PAC full control over the voter outreach. It lets you do things like plan a campaign roadmap, streamline petition signing, remind voters of important election dates, and of course, chase the ballots for during the get out the vote period. Influencing a voter takes at least 10 contacts. It's very much like sales. So how do you keep track of who you've emailed, texted, door knocked, or sent direct mailers to? There are oftentimes many vendors with lots of disconnected tools. So Salvo brings all of this together and allows you to target the right voter with the right message at the right time. It unifies the fragmented tool sets into one simple software to use with things like district insights, campaign milestones, voter data segmentation, timelines, outreach productivity, and voter outreach salvos. Salvo is cost effective because it eliminates the consultant and their vendors and lets you go directly to the voter at the best price possible. Salvo has two very affordable pricing options, month to month for you to do kind of a DIY platform, or you can hire a Salvo Journey guide for a month or more to help you get going, as well as to coordinate your ground game. things like texting, emailing, door hangers, mailers are all at best in-market prices. And the 2024 election year is going to be crazy. It's already getting crazy. I mean, I can't believe it. So start planning your voter outreach now with Salvo Journeys. You can go to www.salvo.today and create your account. We, the Locals listeners, get a free guided journey session to help you kickstart your campaign. So make sure that you mention us when you contact Salvo today. Salvo Journeys, Campaign Victory Simplified. So thank you very much, Salvo. We're very excited that you are with us. And definitely, I know, campaign season is kicking off.
And
Right.
big help to me. Thank
Yeah.
you, Ro and Salvo.
Thank you.
And Jody.
So
So we're about finished up here, Commissioner. So I have a question: is where do you what is something that you would like to see yourself accomplish by the end of your term?
Told you there was going to be a spotlight.
There would be a spotlight.
Dun,
Wow.
dun, dun.
Yeah. There's a couple. One I'm working on it that I don't want to talk too
That's
much about. That has to do with some of our preserved lands and our outdoor areas. I am a Republican, but I'm very much a conservative and wanting to protect what we have. And I'll just say
conserve. what we
conserve.
have.
Yes, and something that I've learned even from our national park buddies, they've realized that in order for us to protect some of our natural resources, we have to, one, give people access to it. And we have an entire generation of kids who are coming up who maybe don't have the same relationship with nature that we do because we're growing up in cities and everything's very manicured and perfect, and nature's not. And we need to be able to keep some of that, and I think we have to give people access to it, and it also needs a purpose. And I'm working on a project for that. I don't want to give away too much on that, but hopefully when I talk to you guys again in the future, there'll be more in the works. And then the other thing is I really want to work with our county departments on putting a time limit on some of the development orders that come. And so much of my job really is about land use and development orders. And, someone buys a parcel of land that's agricultural, or, it's very rural in density. There's not a lot of homes to be built. They get an approval to flip it. They're not the ones who are actually going to do it. And then they can wait 10 or 15 years. And we don't actually have hard time limits on some of this. And some of it's legislative, where if there's a state of emergency, they get extensions that can just build up and build up and build up. And then they can build something, 10 years from now, which in the meantime, what has happened around there, they don't even have to revisit it. They don't have to do another traffic study. But there's a few things that we could put into place where if they don't break ground at a certain amount of time, they have to come back with a legitimate reason. Why haven't you started this project? Or you could lose the application and then you have to start over, which I think our staff spends an enormous amount of time approving projects that may or may never be built just to get the land use change so they can sell it to someone else, or they can hold it for something better, and they can sell it for, sell the land for more money. Because
They've already gone through all of the efforts to change
Yes.
things, so now they can go and sell it, turn around and
Yes.
sell it to someone who wants to develop and say, we've already done all the work for you, so we can sell it for more money.
it's an entire business that I'm realizing
flipping.
exists
It's
here.
flipping a
It's
house.
flipping, but it's flipping large parcels of land
Oh my
that don't have the
gosh,
development.
I didn't even know this was a thing.
This is the thing, and they can, and this is what brought GL to us in the first place, because what was approved up there, they've been sitting on it for all these years, and up there's like, please, no, you can't build all of this, and it should have never been approved, but they got it approved, and now they can either use it for something else or just hang on to it until development catches up, but that shouldn't be done, and we have to tighten up, and it's going to take a lot of work. I'm going to be asking for a workshop shortly on how we can work with what we're allowed to, because we're state legislators don't let us do a whole lot of stuff when it comes to zoning. It has to be in the comp plan. That's where they give us the most power. And I talk a lot about comp plan because that is where we decide the future of Palm Beach County. And, we joke, glad Abby's not here, but we don't want to turn into Broward,
Sorry,
Sorry, Abby. But
Broward's gonna Broward.
Broward's going to Broward. And, that's what is pushing into Palm Beach County. And what makes us still here is because of the comp plan. And if we keep hacking away at it, and I know too, because stuff has come to me where it's like, oh, we're allowed this, and we're just going to ask for this a little bit more. It's 400 more cars of traffic, when really it's like 2,000 more trips, because what they've been approved for is 1,600. So if you know of a road, and and they come to, especially early on, it's hard to wrap your brain around all of this. And like, oh, it's just this many more. It's not that big a deal. It's just a tweak.
Abby said she heard that.
Sorry, Abby. We still love you. And I visit Broward all the time, but as far as our land, we can't just give it up the way it happened there. And this is where we have to tighten it up. And it's not just for us, but a board 10 years from now is not going to know all the stuff that we know on how this got approved. And the people who are coming to us to get the approvals aren't the ones who ultimately will build the project. So they're not beholden to the promises they make us. And down the road, it can be changed. And the tweak looks like it's a tweak, but really it's a complete overhaul from what this land was originally intended or what was zoned. You have horse farms next to it, and they're like, that's a horse farm. And now it's going to be what? And some of the changes are big. And 10 years from now, the next board that comes along are having to deal with what we approved, but it's 3 different buyers away. And, there's problems there. And part of, before I leave, however long that is, I would like to have that tightened up so future boards have a better understanding. And applicants who are coming in to get these approvals are the ones who plan on doing it, or you don't get it. You can't just build it and then flip it to the next person. If you come to us, plan on building.
It should expire with that application. Is that what you're saying?
If I can do that, that's what I'm aiming for. We're limited because there's property rights and property can be sold. And if the land use has been changed, that's where it gets tricky. And it's where we need to know how early in the process should we be tightening this up. Because once some changes are made, the property rights go with the property. So,
and that's, and that's important too.
And that is important.
Rights.
And then when the state declares a state of emergency, that opens up a whole nother can of worms that kind of amplifies this.
State legislators, if you're listening.
Yes. Well, and think about it. We live in Florida. There's always a state of emergency happening.
Always.
And they get.
And are those states of emergency anywhere in the state, or are those just in Palm Beach County?
Certain ones have to be Palm Beach County.
Okay.
Some of them, but sometimes we have statewide emergencies.
Right.
Some of them, sometimes if it's a neighboring county, like if it's Broward or Martin, because a hurricane's coming through, I think sometimes they get maybe 30 days instead of 60. Either way, we have projects that have multiple years of extensions that are just part of, because COVID gave them years. Hurricanes Ian and Nicole, I believe they gave them each a year for each of those storms. So that's another 2 years. And it's however long the state of emergency is plus a certain amount of time. So there are projects who probably have 6 to 8 years of extensions. And that's if we don't have another emergency.
Between now and then when they
there's nothing that holds the developers accountable to speed up the process or get it done because they have this extended amount of time. So there's nothing to stop them from being bad actors, so to speak. And that's really concerning because then there's, I remember back in the day, it was like, oh, if this project doesn't get done, you're fined. Like the county or the city would be
liquidated damages.
Yes, would be able to charge back the contractor and say, hey, you didn't get this done on time. So now you have to, it gets taken off of the contract. So with this state of emergency, we lose that power to be able to make sure that these projects get done in a timely manner.
And when it comes to developers building their own for sale product, they're selling homes, it's kind of on them. If they want to sit and wait, well, you just don't get to sell the homes. But when it comes to like a road project, and this came to me because anyone who lives in Boca, East Palmetto Park, the bridge project, I was like, when do we get to liquidated damages? And I don't think we ever will because of the state of emergencies, and they get automatic extensions on time.
So they just don't have to work.
They don't have
That's
to.
why when you drive by, like on a Tuesday at 2:00, and you're like, why is no one working?
Well, and I'm like, if I ask questions on this and I push on them, it's like, no, I'm toothless when it comes to this because there's a state of emergency. They get extensions.
So, and again, who created that
Your
law?
state legislators.
Okay. So who do people need to contact to yell at them about these problems?
Your state legislators.
Yes. Okay. So state legislator candidates and state legislators listening, this is a problem.
And there's a new app to find out who your state legislators are, too. It's called Bill Blaster.
That's right. I just heard about that.
Yep. So very interesting. So Bill Blaster.
And how they're voting on stuff.
And so check that out. I'm not fully versed in it.
Is it state or just federal?
I think it's both. I could be wrong.
That's interesting.
But
check it out and give us feedback.
But regardless, I actually sent them an email of like, could you do like look up an address and have all of the representative from local to federal. So I didn't get a response, but hopefully it's something that they could work on. Wouldn't that be awesome to like put in your address and know like who your mayor is, who your city council
How they're
is,
voting on stuff,
who your county commissioner is, all of that kind of stuff in one little app. So
yeah.
And that's why it's so important what you're doing is helping people understand who does what. If there's this particular issue you don't like, you need to know, is this my city? Is this my county? Is this state? Who do I go to? Because someone made this decision. Someone voted on this.
And it's so
helpful.
complicated. And I love, I parrot what you say a lot too. Like when it comes to constituents, they don't care who owns the road. They just want the road fixed. But if you don't know who owns the road, it does make it hard to know who to go to get it fixed. So it's kind of a give and take. It's a partnership that we have to have.
And that's where
with
the
our
county
government.
has to work with the cities, and that's why having
or the state, yeah.
And I think that's where you excel too, Commissioner, is because of the fact that you want to connect and have relationships within the cities and municipalities because it's what's best for the constituents. And I think a lot of commissioners before you or other commissioners might not quite understand that part. And so you have 13 municipalities in your district of District 4. And I love how you do your best to make sure that you have open lines of communication. And when a constituent calls, you do your best to bridge that gap. So thank you for that.
So before we close, is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners, as well as any of your social media that you want to shout out for them to follow or how they can connect with you?
My social media. I don't. I'll punt that one to her.
I figured that was going to be the case, but I thought I would give you. I always ask all of our candidates and
I will say
officers.
We do a monthly newsletter that is. I think it's a really good job. Caitlin works on that throughout the month.
Shout out Caitlin.
Shout out Caitlin.
And Christian.
Too. Yes. Christian actually was watching popcorn and was watching with you guys. She went home.
Oh yeah,
the GL thing.
Yeah.
So she was all in on it too. But anyway, Caitlin works on the newsletter, and it's a lot of stuff that I've been doing throughout the previous month. Some issues like I'm sure we'll have to address the GL vote or any of this, and then some local agencies, and we do a government 101 where we're kind of breaking down how local government works. And even she did one about how to address the county commission. How do you come in and do a public comment? So it's really good. If you would like to get that, email us just you could request to be put on the newsletter. We only send out one a month, so we're not going to bombard your email with it. But I'd just like to say right now, it's a county commission. We've been talking about county stuff. There's 7 of us. And I think that we're working really well together. And it's important that people do pay attention. And you can watch our meetings on YouTube, our Channel 20 on TV. Like if we have Xfinity and it's actually on Channel 20, you can watch it. But it's important that as many people who can watch this stuff, because we just had an issue that went to our zoning this morning, and I had people calling me, and it's something that happened years ago. And you find out when it's about to happen, and that's the hard time to stop it. It's so far down the road, you can't stop it. But if you catch it early,
like for example, there was a conversation today in the zoning not today. I listened to the rest of it today, but it was yesterday, Wednesday, yes, where they were. One of the things that was brought up was like, do you want staff to allow this to start processing this request? And so that's like the beginning of a request. So that is how that process starts. It comes in, the commissioners say, yes, we want staff to put time and effort into looking into this and working with the applicant, whatever it may be, into this. So that's when people can start saying, hey, wait, whoa, where's that? Where's that parcel of land? Is that somewhere near me? Is that something I care, whatever. And that's like how process.
And it is a lot to keep up with. That's why, we have staff. We have all of this to keep up with it. But it's still important, if you can, put in as much time to watch these votes early, especially if you ever see public notice signs. I mean, they're the big signs that say Palm Beach County.
Ones.
If you see that, anytime you stop and look at that, you can just send an email to Palm Beach County, or I forget the actual website for the government, and ask for information. And they will give, not I oppose or I don't want this or whatever, just what is this? Can you tell me? And you'll get a full understanding. If there's a parcel of land near you and you want to know, or somewhere you drive by, it's like, wait, what are they going to do here? You can ask. And that type of information will be given to you. And you should ask as soon as you see that sign, because that's when we're having the hearings, and that's when your voice carries the most weight. And that's when you have the chance to actually influence what's going to happen there. If it's for or against, or even if you're just trying to tweak it, that's the time to do it.
Right.
Not once it's breaking ground. There's just little we can do then.
That's not it.
Not
Ship
at the
has
end
sailed.
of the process, at the beginning
Yes,
of the
beginning.
process.
The beginning of the
So
process.
you can check out Commissioner Woodward on the pbcgov.org website. You can check out under Commissioners District 4. You can find out more information about her, how to contact her. She's also on Facebook, Commissioner Marci Woodward, and she's also on Instagram. So be sure to follow her there. On the Facebook, there is a sign-up link, so you can just push that, put in your information, and then you would be able to get the newsletters going forward. Very, very informative.
Very good.
Definitely highlight. If nothing else, you have the Coastal Star and Commissioner Marci Woodward's newsletter.
Between those two things, you should know about everything that's
you
going
will,
on. In the
you will be
community.
you will be more informed than your neighbors if you check out
Absolutely.
those two things for sure.
And
So
continue listening to us.
and continuing to listening to us so we can tie it all together. Thank you so much, Commissioner Woodward, for your time
you.
today. We can't wait to have you back. We love you. We get to spend time with you all of the time, but this was extra special for at least me, and I'm sure Josie feels the same way,
Absolutely.
and Stu. So we
Yes.
definitely missed Abby today. She'll definitely be back at our next episode. Be sure to check out our sponsors. We have Salvo today and the R30 Agency. If you need to email We the Locals, you can reach out to wethelocalsfl@gmail.com. And you can also check us out online, find out more about us, find our episodes, our bios, how to become a sponsor at wethelocalspodcast.com. So have a great night, everybody, and stay local.
Bye.
Bye.